Joining us is Iurii Ihnat, spokesperson of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Iurii. Good afternoon, Mr. Iurii. I propose to start our conversation with dynamics of the enemy strikes. What's going on? We see some quiet time. Nothing special is happening. The rocket strikes of the cities along the front line are going on, and with the S-300 anti-aircraft complexes, we know that the enemy inflicted strikes on Kharkiv and Zaporizhia regions, and they continue doing it. They can reach those areas with those old complexes, the old rocket systems they have. Yesterday there was an attack on one of the central regions with the Tupolev-22 bombers. The X-22 rockets were shot. The application of the aviation rockets X-39, X-59 that enemy uses from time to time, occasionally in the regions where the battles are taking place. As to the strikes of the critical infrastructure, we don't see any of them within the last week. I mean, the application of Shahed drones and cruise missiles. Obviously, the enemy cannot afford to commit these massive rocket strikes all the time because they experience certain deficit of this type of weapon, and we can say the same about Iskander and X-555, X-101 rockets, caliber, specifically caliber. Especially in October, they were not used a lot, up to 15 of them during the whole of October. So which means that these missiles are in deficit with the enemy, and they cannot manufacture them on the large scale in a fast manner. And you know that the carriers of calibers are now in the Black Sea basin, but any enemy provocations are possible in terms of strikes. Besides, from 10 to 11, we have in the east of our country, the Air Force destroyed 2 UAVs of the tactical level. Mr. Iurii, this quiet time, can we say that the enemy changed their tactics, and instead of chaotic strikes, they gather resources, they accumulate resources for another massive strike? Obviously, it's a conditional quietness in terms of strikes, but let's see if anything is quiet and calm. In the Donetsk region, we see Bakhmut, Avdiivka being constantly attacked by the artillery. Enemy does not quit their attempt to go to get to the administrative borders of the Lugansk and Donetsk region. The hot firefights are happening there. We say about quietness in terms of rocket strikes and missile strikes. Yes, I think that the enemy is accumulating its forces because, as I previously mentioned, they cannot afford to constantly strike on us, and we can relate it to something that happened in the southern direction. We've witnessed the liberation of the right bank of Dnieper, and apparently the enemy concentrated their attention on these measures to preserve the group of the troops in that area, to get them regrouped and relocated. So this is what it's related to, I think. Mr. Iurii, what will change in the work of our anti-aircraft artillery after the liberation of Kherson and the right bank? Anti-aircraft systems are not only the surface-to-air missile systems, but it's the fighter jets as well, and electronic intelligence units, target acquisition systems. Certain part of territories were added which need to be protected. I mean the liberated regional center and the towns and villages in the region, and we have to reinforce the anti-aircraft and anti-rocket defense in this area. And in compliance with the resolutions of the Higher Military Command, these systems will be located in this area to cover it, and to some extent it complicates the situation. Obviously, the more territories we add, we have to protect them, but it's our land and it's something that has to happen. We understand that the work of our aviation units, our fighter jets, our interceptors will be complicated, our helicopters. The forward edge of the battle area is now goes along the Dnieper River, and enemy has to get themselves reinforced on the left bank, digging the reinforcement facilities, fortifications, to increase their anti-aircraft systems, exposing their systems by delivering them by land, and as to the water, we can the enemy will feel easier acquiring new targets above the water because it's a flat surface, but we have certain plan of actions for these scenarios, and we understand that the work of aviation will continue along with the work of other defense forces in countering enemy in this southern direction. Mr. Iurii, there is an information in the media that there is a crowdfunding in Czech Republic for 15 anti-aircraft systems for our armed forces, the killers of Shaheds. How will it help us? To what extent it will help us, and what weapons we need specifically to destroy Shaheds? The killers of Shaheds, it's everything now, starting from fighter jets to surface-to-air missile systems, the machine guns, Jeopards, everything works against Shaheds. It just has to be done in a proper manner. It just has to be done in a timely manner, in a necessary place, because the enemy uses all the sections of the territory, the whole territory of Ukraine, to inflict strikes in different parts and to attack from different directions. It's mostly happening from the south of our country, and these machine gun complexes is a very cool help. We appreciate it. We thank our partners. We thank everybody who helps to protect Ukrainian skies. Their range is not so big. It's like, you know, even Jeopard, he has a range of 5 kilometers radius. The territory of our land is extended, so we have to locate the forces to the maximum efficient manner. And I want to remind you that the last week there was a statement as to the transfer to Ukraine of surface-to-air missile systems, NASAMS, which are already in the ranks of Ukrainian armed forces, which cover Ukrainian skies already. Now it's a very good piece of news for that NASAMS get involved in the protection of Ukrainian skies, and any reinforcement from the number of everything that was promised to Ukraine. We know that Hawk is already transferred. Our units trained to work on them now. It will be added to the ranks of armed forces, and we are awaiting for other support that our partners promised to us. Dear colleagues, your questions, please introduce yourself. Good afternoon, Ukrinform, Natalia Molchanova. My question is as follows. Do you observe the increase of Russian aviation in Belarus? And maybe you have information about Iranian drones being transported there. I understand your question. Yeah, we mentioned it a number of times that it doesn't matter when they increase the aviation there, because aviation is a mobile kind of armed forces, armed of weapons. It can be transferred within hours. Russia uses all the Belarus's airfields and they locate their material there. We know that MiG-31K aircraft that cause our air raid alerts all the time. So it's the place of their location. In the same way they locate other types of aviation material there. What we can say about it's Sukhov 30, Sukhov 34, 35 aircraft and Kamo 52 helicopters and other helicopters they use from the territory of Belarus. The number of aviation material located along the borders, well, along the borders is a very conditional statement. I mean the 40 airfields that we mentioned, which are located in both Crimea and Russia and Belarus. It's about 750 aircraft which are dissipated along this vast territory along the borders of Ukraine. Once again, the transportation of the fixed-wing aircraft is the matter of hours, so we don't have to focus our attention on them. Another question, please.
Colonel, thank you for your patience and your time. My name is Lorenzo Cremonesi from Italian Press, Corriere della Sera. Sir, I have two questions. Can we say that almost 9 months from the beginning of the Russian invasion, you have today relatively well control of your skies, that you're in much better condition, of course, than a few months ago, but you have now almost full control of your sky? This is the first question. And if you can say, add on this, what is the main element? Why this happened? And secondly, can you give us an idea how many Iranian drones are now in the hands of the Russian? Because, you know, when they appeared a few weeks ago, the idea was they had thousands of drones coming here, but then we don't see many drones, many action by the Russian with this kind of weapon. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to add something about the drones. As of today, we have the information that it's about 330 drones were destroyed. This Shahed 136, because there were other drones, Mojahed 6 and Shahed 136. It's a smaller loitering drone than 136 model. So the enemy launched more than 400 UAVs against us, and it was stated that Russia ordered, like recently we had the intel of the Ministry of Defense that Russia ordered 1,500 these drones in the summer this year. But order is one thing, but we understand that they have to be delivered, they have to be located at the launch sites, and only then they can be used. So as of today, this is the number we're having now. So over 400 drones launched. Obviously, the deliveries will be going on depending on a number of factors. Their application was from Kherson region, from Zaporizhia region, from Crimea, and from the territories of Kursk region in Russia, and from Belarus as well. And as to the application of the armed forces, of the anti-aircraft forces, within the last months, the task they were facing is to protect the sky from the Russian aviation, from the pressure, from bombardment from the sky, from bombers and helicopters, which within the first days of the war massively entered the airspace of Ukraine, and the main strike was inflicted on the radio stations and air forces of Ukraine, and enemy wanted to gain advantage in the airspace, and we had to push them out of our airspace, and our air force managed to do it. And during this period, Russian aviation does not enter the airspace of Ukraine. Only close to the front lines where the firefights are going on, it's the assault aviation, helicopters, fighter jets, bombers, but it's all happening near the forward edge of the battle area where they suffer the most losses of their material. As to the other aircraft entering our airspace are the unmanned aerial vehicles, the reconnaissance UAVs that I mentioned today. We had 2 of them destroyed in the, first of all, it's Orlan 10 Russian UAV, and also the enemy uses Lancet, the Russian manufactured loitering drone, and the main threat is rocket and missile strikes on the critical infrastructure, from which Air Force protects our population as well, along with the electric power plants, hydraulic power plants, which are currently targeted by the terrorist state.
I insist, but apparently you're telling us something very, very important today. So you're telling us that while at the beginning the Russians were able to enter massively, you say, in your sky and your airspace, today basically they are not. I mean, they launch some missile, they try, but basically you have now full control of your skies, which is a very important piece of news. Am I correct?
I would not want to emphasize that we control our skies to the full extent, because we still require international help, international support in this regards. Because if we say for the time being that yes, we control our skies to the full extent, yes, we control it to the extent that we don't let the Russian aviation to enter our airspace, because they afraid they will be destroyed as it was happening during the first month. But in order to keep controlling our skies, we still require international help. Those systems that we have in our ranks, Buk M1 and S300, they are being targeted on a daily basis by the enemy, and unfortunately they are being destroyed. The material is going out of order, plus the weather conditions will influence this. And what's most complicated, the rockets that we have in those systems are of Soviet manufacture, and those are exactly the rockets that enemy uses for inflicting strikes on our cities. They use them as ballistic missiles. We may face some deficit of these missiles and rockets, because we destroy both Shaheds and fighter jets and helicopters of the enemy using those missiles and rockets. So we have to replace our anti-aircraft and anti-rocket defenses, replacing those developments of the Soviet era, because we now fight with these. With those Soviet era rockets, we fight the missiles manufactured in Russia like 1 or 2 years ago. So that's why the Air Force and the Ukrainian state still require that help that I mentioned, and we appreciate all the help, obviously, for providing this support to us. Iris-T, the German system, destroyed almost 100 of the targets it was shooting at. It's a new system with new target acquisition, very powerful missiles. It is reinforced by NASAMS. The Avengers delivered by our American partners are the systems that have their own radar that can efficiently work with 8 Stinger missiles, which are very mobile, and they can move to any area, can be easily and promptly deployed. They can work together with our complexes, Iris-T, NASAMS, in one information field that will significantly reinforce our battle capabilities. Thank you very much, Mr. Iurii. Any more questions? No more questions. I want to thank you for finding time to join us. We traditionally thank our Air Force. Dear colleagues, You've just heard Iurii Ihnat, the spokesperson of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Our next briefing is at 15:30. We will have Sergei Marchenko joining us, the Minister of Finance of Ukraine, and we will talk specifically about the budget of 2023 and other financial activities of the ministry. So bear with us. Glory to Ukraine.